for the big election coming up. You got less than a month to go. What are you telling people out on the campaign trail to convince them to vote for you for mayor of Daytona Beach?
Well, I'm telling them that if you want things to kind of remain the same as we continue to go backwards in terms of this city and losing businesses and losing population and becoming one of the poorest cities in the county in terms of our overall actually income level dropping and all of those things that are driving businesses away and the like, if you want that to continue, then, you know, you continue with things the way they are. You continue to vote the way you've been voting. But if you want things to move forward, if you want things to be much more progressive, if you want more to be done in the residential areas, you want more to be done for you, more money spent toward those things that are important to you, looking after our youth and recreational programs, our seniors, and our families, having a quality city, then I am the best choice for you for mayor of the city of Daytona Beach. I also tell them, which is key and important, Greg, is the fact that I have the experience, municipal experience, and that's very important because when you have that experience, you don't make, in my opinion, and opinions of so many, the kinds of mistakes in terms of decisions that are made, which actually end up hurting the city and not helping the city. So experience does matter. If I am elected, I will use that experience that I've had, 15 years of being city clerk and assistant to the city manager, 2 years as being the city commissioner for this area. Again, the 15 years city clerk, assistant to the city manager, which means I know the inner workings, I know how to get things done. And that's key, that's important, because so many things will be coming forward in addition to what we've been dealing with, which will actually be important steps for this city as we attempt to move forward. And with me, we will move forward in progress.
So let's talk about that. You mentioned businesses leaving, residents leaving the city of Daytona Beach. Let's get down to specifics, though, because we're a couple weeks away, and it's nice to say those things on the campaign trail, but what are the specifics of what you're going to do? Let's say you're elected, you know, first 100 days or whatever you want to look at. What are some of the initiatives that you can concrete say, I'm going to support X, Y, and Z in order to stop businesses from closing down in Daytona Beach and stop residents from leaving the area?
Well, businesses that are leaving because of our high tax rate, because of the fees and a lot of the fines, all that kind of stuff that goes on. But they're also saying that we're not a business-friendly community. What will I do? Well, I've said that in the first 100 days that I will have 3 summits. I'll have a business summit, I'll have a youth summit, and I'll have a resident summit. Why have that? Because so many of our businesses, so many of our residents feel that they're not being listened to. But once you listen, once you finish talking, once the information gets down on paper, then what? Then it's time to take action. What do you do in terms of taking action? You make sure that staff is well trained and that they understand that they are partners with the residents and with the businesses. You make sure that they understand that we're in this together, that we're not there to say no, 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 but we're there to say, what can I do to help? How can I help you to progress and do the things that need to be done? You make sure that you have sufficient police officers in place so that you actually are out there and you're able to fight crime as is necessary. Not cutting back on police officers, but actually increasing the level of police force that's out there, because that's key and that's important. People want to and need to feel safe. You make sure that you have sufficient code enforcement staff that's out there as well. We have issues, as I've walked this city, and I've walked a good 85% of the city in total, not skipping and going here and there just looking for super voters, but going all around the city, talking to people, looking at the area. There are some places that are much worse than others. There are some places where the resources, financial and otherwise, have not been given to those areas. There are places where people have great opportunities and where they've taken advantage of the opportunities to have great landscaping. Their houses are well kept, great neighborhoods. But then there are a few spotted areas where they have people that are there that are not taking care of their properties, or maybe their bank properties, bank owned and the like. We've got to start to zero in on those properties. We've got to be serious, Greg, about our economic development. Right now, the city has economic development, but what they have is one staff person and an assistant to clerical person to assist them. If we're serious about economic development, we've got to also pump up that staff. Does that mean that we're going to grow the staff? I believe we've got to look at the budget. We've got to reprioritize our our issues that are important. Money is there, but you've got to fund the priorities that are important that will get us the things that we need in terms of jobs, better paying jobs, in terms of cleaning up the city, not just the trash, but cleaning up the image, that's internal and external, in terms of doing more things for our youth. Our youth are having to go to Port Orange and Ormond Beach to get programs and services, recreational programs and services. As many as we offer, we don't offer as much as is necessary. We have parent groups that are actually running things like football and baseball and track and the like. And these teams are, I could almost say world renowned because they're winning. They're winning all over the place. And the only time we do anything for them is once they've won, we put them in front of the commission and we applaud and say, great job, guys. But we don't do much to assist. Now, during an election year, we're talking about, well, maybe we'll help. We've got to do more to actually invest in the city, and that's what I'm saying that we will do under my leadership as mayor of Daytona Beach.
Hey, Gwen, on this past Wednesday, they voted to, the commission voted to implement a rental program where they go and inspect rental properties. Are you for that or against that, or what's your take on that particular move?
Well, I would agree, as former city commissioner Sheila McKay Vaughn said, that they really needed to look more into it. I am for increased code enforcement.
Well, we've looked into this. I mean, I could see you have one view or another, but we have talked about this for years. I mean, this isn't new. This isn't something that just popped up.
But one of the things that was stated, you were a business owner on Beach Street. One of the things that was stated is that sometimes on what is in place is that there are some people who actually have some properties that they have been working hard, they have been following the rules.
Right.
But what they're saying is that they're thrown in with everything else, that now you've got this additional fee and everything else. Do I support it? Yes, I support it. Is it something that we need to monitor and make sure that what we don't end up doing is driving more people out, right. Having more places that are left vacant, having more poor individuals who have no place to stay? I think that's important too, and I think we need to look at that. But do we need to clean up the area? Yes, indeed, we do need to clean up the area. When you say we've been looking at it, we've been working on it, that's great. I guess, is that a board, a committee, etc.?
I mean, I've just heard about
You've been
this.
a part of it? Well, you were saying we, because you sound like you were a part of it.
No, I was not part of any of it, but I just said we as a community and as a city have talked about how do we up the residential, or the rental properties that we have,
only 37% of homes in this city are owner.
And lower than 10% in some of the areas we're talking about. So that is a problem.
Right.
So maybe I should ask my question this way: how would you deal with the problem of the lack of owner occupancy that we have in this city, especially in the core part of the city, whether it be over by the E zone or
well, the closer you get to the beach, the worse it looks. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, it's just like the article that the News Journal presented in the paper, and everybody, talks about that, but that's not news to people who live in the city. It's not news to anyone who either lives on the beach side or on the mainland side, because we have similar issues on the mainland side as well. And what does it take? I heard people say that we have some code enforcement policies in place, but they're not being followed through. They're not being utilized. Why is that? Is it because we don't have sufficient staff? Is it because some of those persons are actually being taken from other places in the city and then having to zero in on a special project because we've got a special group coming to town or whatever? Or is it because we really need to really zero in on what are the policies, the procedures that are in place, and what works and what doesn't work? I know that people have been talking about it for years. We've been talking and talking, but the truth is, Al, that I've talked with homeowners, I've talked to businesses, and I've heard them say that they've called the city, they've complained about certain properties. They've also asked in terms of their own properties to be able to make improvements, but they've been told no. They've been told that they can't do this or they can't do that. Right. And one of the areas that has been top on the list for a lot of these people who live in the area is the 65% rule. You familiar with that? That when you have an issue, you have a fire or whatever else, that there's only, if it's X amount and it goes above the value of the property, that you cannot go forward and actually do some replacement and improvements in your home or in your business. I mean, there are some things in place that work against individuals and businesses being able to make improvements, and we need to deal with those things as well as the other stuff that you're saying they're pushing forward. It does not help this city to end up with more vacancies, to end up with more people leaving the area and not having a place to stay, to end up with, as we've said, you know, the fewer businesses, fewer jobs. We need to make sure that as we're putting things in place, that there are things that work, but we also need to consider the consequences. Does that mean that we don't work to stringently clean it up and make it better? The answer to that is yes, we got to work to do that. We got to make it better, but we've also got to at the same time look at the possible consequences and make sure that we're helping and not hurting.
I'll tell you what, whatever you had for breakfast.
Well, let me tell you, I'm on my Wheaties this morning. Well, I tell you, well, we had the Bel Air Community Group Forum last night, and we've got the News Journal one next week. I also have one in Pelican Bay next week. You know, and there are of course radio shows and things that we're doing, and I'm still walking in the community. I'm still really working on doing some other things to make sure that I get my message out. But you know, well, I can easily respond to a lot of this and tell you what I feel about it because Al knows I go to meetings. You know, I go to the meetings. I read the material. I do my research. I talk to people. I talk to staff. I talk to individuals, businesses, and you know, regular people who are having to live with and deal with the decisions that are made by the city. And I can tell you this, that in terms of businesses, and I would hope you would agree, Al, that one of the most important things is consistency.
Right.
Absolutely, right? You know, businesses want to know that when a decision is made by the commission, that that decision will at least be in place for a couple of years, hopefully longer than that. But there's just too much uncertainty from our commission, too much uncertainty in terms of the rules that are in place. And almost every time you look around, something's changed. I hear it from businesses. I hear it from residents. You go in, you request something through permanent licensing, they tell you what you need to do, you go back, they tell you got something else to do. Do you hear that, Al, at all?
Actually, I hear that on every government I've ever worked with.
Well,
anywhere.
I can tell you.
The bigger the government, the bigger it becomes.
Well, let me tell you, as a person
federal.
who has worked for this government, that was not the case when I was the city clerk. There was more consistency in terms of decisions made by the commission. There was more consistency in terms of rules and regs as it related to staff and how they dealt with it.
Hey, I got to stop you there because we consistently have to take a break.
We got to pay for this.
7:53. We're fired up here in the morning drive show.
Yeah, we're fired up.
Let's take a break and check in with our news director, Leslie Taylor.
Morning, the last and final
Don't train Bob with that.